Brooke, I saw you were also on the Zoom call with Mike Schilt. It was at 11 o'clock.
Invitation only.
Invitation only. A very high-class event, of course, with all the local media. And it was about 10 minutes. I gave my perspective. Cam did. Brooke, what'd you think of Mike Schilt's 10-minute statement? Did not take questions, but what he said today.
I honestly wasn't surprised by any of it because, one, I think we all knew that he was still going to be pursuing a job elsewhere. So, and as soon as I got the text this past weekend that he would be speaking via Zoom and it was from the Cardinals PR, I was like, oh, well, he's not going to say anything. So I didn't have any big expectations going into it. I knew he wouldn't say anything that would surprise people. I just, he was very emotional, so that's always hard to sit there and, kind of listen to someone, pour out their heart and cry and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, I think that he took the high road, and I think that was kind of the good way to do it. I honestly say I think that he looked better in his press conference, even though it was just a statement, as opposed to the way that Mozeliak kind of handled the letting go or parting ways firing press conference. Because Mozeliak kind of still took a little bit, took some jabs at Schilt. Schilt didn't do any of that in his, which of course he had time to kind of think about that, but I just thought that he looked a little bit more professional, classy. It was a little bit, better handled, I felt like.
Yeah, Mike Schilt also had 4 days to prepare and also to get his thoughts in order, because on that Thursday, that had to be so emotional, really, for both parties. Clearly more so than Schilt. And I'm sure he was so stunned. I'm sure he's crying that day. I mean, he got choked up talking about his wife today during his statement, but he also had basically 100 hours to process it. Now, I'm curious. I know John Mozeliak he wasn't able to say a ton and really get deep into answers, and he mentioned philosophical differences. He said that, Schilt and Jeff Albert, that wasn't the sole reason. But where did you think he took jabs at Schilt?
Well, just kind of bringing up things about, the philosophical differences, not being able to come together, that there were differences, and, kind of insinuating, I felt like, that Schilt wasn't getting on board. And they even said that at certain points. So I think that was a little surprising, considering this is a man that's been a part of your organization since 2004, and you had such a big disagreement about something, even though this is someone that you trusted and, let rise throughout your system to the point where he's the 50th manager in Cardinals history. It seems surprising to me that it just ended that abruptly, and because they couldn't come to some type of, conclusion where they could agree on things, or maybe hear out Schilt on his perspective on things.
And Jim, Cam, Brooke, please weigh in here. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but when you have a 10-minute statement and you can't take questions, or he didn't take questions, so nobody was able to follow up, it makes you read potentially more than you should into what he said about certain people, how he said them or didn't. For example, when I'm watching that, I'm listening for Jeff Albert. Now, he did mention a bunch of coaches, and he said Jeff. But then he went in, he had a nice little paragraph about Ali Marmol. To me, it almost sounded like an endorsement.
Yeah, it really
for Ali
did.
Marmol to be the next manager.
Yeah.
He spoke longer about Mike Maddox, who was his pitching coach, clearly. And look, Jeff Albert was his hitting coach for the last 3 years. And he didn't speak in the same way about Jeff Albert. Now, am I reading too much into that? I don't think so. There clearly was some type of chasm between Albert and Mike Schilt. Now, was it so deep that was the main reason? John Mozeliak said it wasn't the sole reason. It was one of those reasons. Do you think I'm off base there? Because, again, he and people can go back and watch this. 590 The Fan during the Hollywood Casino press box. They took it live. It's on my YouTube, Charlie Marlow. All the different TV stations. Fox 2 is the best, of course. They streamed it live. But did you read a ton into, because I'm hanging on every word.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to try to see, he said it that way. What does that mean? Did you pick up on any tells there?
Yeah, well, since Thursday, since that last press conference, and I'll also add this because I know this is another point that we brought up, because you were around one for more managerial firings and all that kind of stuff. But, the difference between the way that they handled the Mike Matheny one and compared it to Schilt, that's another reason where I kind of mean, like, maybe he didn't come out and take necessarily a jab, but there was definitely an underlying, he was, Mozeliak was very complimentary of Mike Matheny when that was that whole exit and that happened, and it was so different compared to the Schilt one. I mean, not once did I really hear him give him a compliment other than, I thought he did a good job of, handling this season and all the challenges and all that stuff like that. And so, of course, you're going to read into it. I was telling somebody the other day that this felt like the Da Vinci Code in some ways. Like the way that the Cardinals are handling this, it's like I feel like we just keep getting these little clues. Like you said, Charlie, you're hanging on little words and like you feel like you run back to the storyboard and you're just like, okay, so this means that. And, maybe they mean this. And it just feels like you're unlocking some big code. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting. He did spend a lot of time talking about Marlow and was very complimentary of him. But he still did mention DeWitt's and briefly Mozeliak and all that kind of stuff. But it does make you think. It was very noticeable when he gave more, like when Schilt gave longer compliments to certain people as opposed to others. So maybe we are just kind of reading into it. But I don't know if you remember, Schilt did say when it comes to the rumors, don't buy into any of that stuff. Let's just move past this. And I thought that was a really interesting thing he said.
Okay. So I got to go back. I've watched it. I was there live watching it for the 10 minutes. I watched it one more time. That's a great point you said at the end. I need to go back and look, though, because I don't know if he said don't read into it as much as he said let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's be positive. And, hey, with all the rumors, let's just move forward. Because clearly this is a man who's probably going to interview, we've seen, with the San Diego Padres. He wants another baseball job. You'd think immediately. I'm sure he'd love. Look, here's another part of this. Mike Schilt, even if he didn't love the situation next year, I promise you, he would have wanted to still be managing the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh,
even
yeah.
if he didn't have as much power, even if John Mozeliak said, look, you're going to do it this way. There's not many teams that are set up to be as successful, in my opinion, in 2022 as the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the Padres could be one of those teams. So that's another part of this. Look, the Padres are going to be like, why did you just get fired? Right? And they're also an analytics-driven organization. Yeah. So Mike Schilt wants to put his best foot forward in getting a job as soon as possible. That also is part of this conversation here. Look, it's awkward. Maybe we never know the whole story, but the Cardinals are going to try to hire a manager in the next couple weeks, you'd think, and Mike Schilt is going to try to get another managing job in the next couple weeks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be really interesting if we kind of switch things out, especially with all the rumors that Skip is possibly interviewing here with the Cardinals. And so it would be interesting to see how this all plays out. And look, I get it. It's like I said, I wasn't expecting him to, throw anybody under the bus or anything like that. I mean, we've seen Schilt, during all this time. He's not exactly that type of person. So I think he did the best that he could while also still trying to make sure that he can get a job in the future in baseball.
Jim, Cam, your thoughts?
It's
go ahead, Jimmy.
The oddity continues. I've never seen a guy get fired and then the club go, yeah, but I'll tell you what, why don't you come back? We'll set up a press conference and you can make your statement. That never happens.
Oh, it's weird.
Never. I mean, unless it's a guy who's retiring, not a guy who is dismissed. I mean, it's just crazy. And then, Brooke, as you pointed out, once I heard there were no questions and I found out that this thing was set up by the team, I'm like, all right, there's not much to this. We're not going to learn much, but it leaves us, all of us in the business, sitting there going, okay, what did he mean by this? What did that mean? And
the Da Vinci Code.
Why is this left open? And he didn't mention Gersh, and no, he didn't mention Jeff Albert. He left those two guys out. I mean, it was a thank you fest. Thank you to everybody for doing. Thank you for you. Thank you to this. And he purposely had time to go through and write down all the names and the people he wanted to thank. And there was a long list of them. And kudos to him for getting that opportunity. The other side of it is there's no way he can go out in public and go, you know what they wanted me to do? They wanted me to accept, the hitting coach. There's no way he was going to do it. Mm-hmm. You know what they wanted me to do? They were going to tell me that next year Waino can't go 7 innings anymore. He's only allowed to go through the pit, the lineup 2 times. A third time is not acceptable. He can't do that. One, he can't do it because it sets him up for any other job that will look at him and go, hey, Mike's available. Let's go talk to him. Oh, did you hear what he said about all the analytics? Well, he's not our guy. We can't even go talk to him. I mean, that may be the biggest point of him just keeping his mouth shut in terms of maybe what he really wanted to say about why.
No doubt. Cammer.
Yeah, he said everything perfectly like we all thought he was going to do. I mean, he's a class act dude, and, he's going to be just fine. And I do agree with a couple of texts here, by the way. Jobu and I were thinking the same damn thing. He didn't I don't know if anybody else noticed that Schilt didn't thank Fredbird. And I'm like, well, what the hell is going on with that?
Can I say real quick?
What?
I don't mean to interrupt. It's funny, though, because I'm on my computer.
Did you see that?
Well, here's what's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm on my computer, and I get unfortunately, I get all my stupid texts. My friends are idiots. But I also get the email alerts. And so as you were talking, Cam, or we were talking, I see St. Louis Cardinals news release. I'm thinking, what is this? It's something juicy. It is. Fredbird named finalist for induction into Mascot Hall of Fame. How about that?
Oh, really? That's cute.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations to Fredbird.
That's the real story of the day.
That's the real story of that. Actually, that could be another conversation. I got questions about that too. But somebody also, the Cardinal Cowboy as well. Tim's mic chimed in. But Mo, somebody chimed in 707. Put a name in because you texting all damn time. Put a name in. Mo is someone that's easily to dislike, and the way this all went down kind of makes it easy to hate him. And it is true. And Timothy Michael was talking about this, and the boys were talking about this earlier. Like you look at Schilt and you feel bad for him, and you're like, he's a likable dude. Like he just is. You could talk to him. Brooke, he's probably really sweet to you, and he walked in and stuff like that. Then you look at Mo, and he's like, he's got the thing draped up, and he talks like snooty a little bit, like I'm just doing that. And so like he kind of like, and he doesn't give you anything. And you're like, well, what are you doing? And so I think the pressure is kind of on Mo, and like people just like when this happens, people are chirping Schilt. Then he gets fired. Then they love him. Now they hate Mo even more, And he just has that. He just kind of has that. Is it Aurora? Do I get that?
Aura. Aurora Borealis.
That's the problem. That's the problem, Brooke, right there. But anyway, I just think
I
that
knew
it's
a girl
easy.
named Aurora.
We called her Tankles.
Oh my God, that poor soul. He hasn't eaten in 3 years.
Cam,
go ahead.
You bring up a great point. Let's focus on that. And I get that. By the way, so John Mozeliak, I do think, look, he's funny in a sarcastic way, but I get it because there is the aura. I understand how people could see him speak and think he's smug, and with the bow tie, I get that. And I understand how on the other side you could see Mike Schilt. He's folksy, North Carolina. He's dadgum. He's yes, ma'am. No, sir. He is. My thing is, like, I understand. We were on the radio when this broke. Jim Heuer and I were doing our Mizzou segment right when this happens, and it is shocking and stunning. But a few days later, this is what happens in sports. And I don't mean to keep saying the same thing over and over, but there's not necessarily a villain here, right? Mike Schilt is good at his job. He made 3 straight postseasons. I understand if you didn't love every move. Did he squeeze every last dropout out of every team? I don't know. That's for you as a fan to decide. But he's good at his job. Okay, 3 playoff trips in his 3 full seasons as manager. Again, could they have went further? Sure. Did I love the Alex Reyes move? I hated that move in the National League wildcard game. Here's another part. You can chirp John Mozeliak all you want. The man's never had a losing season, right? So I understand you want to be Team Schilt or Team John Mozeliak. This happens all the time in sports. And you know what? Time heals all wounds. I'm sure Mike Matheny was ticked off. Then he comes back as manager of the Royals, and he's like, I loved my time here, player, manager. I learned from some of the mistakes, blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you, Mike Schult's a good dude. He's probably going to be a manager somewhere else, and he's going to play the Cardinals again a couple years from now. He's going to have great things to say. Hell, these guys might even be, are they already? Matheny, is he a Cardinals Hall of Famer? They'll be back probably. 20 years from now, they'll be back with a red jacket on potentially, or coming back for different events. I'm not saying that Mike Schilt will be a Cardinals Hall of Famer, but this happens in sports. People get fired. Time heals all wounds. I understand it's a big deal, but general managers and presidents of baseball operations and managers, this happens all the time. I mean, teams fire guys every 3, 4, 5 years. It's not a new thing.
Yeah. Well, and, something that changed my perspective when it came to this kind of stuff was, a few years ago when I first started covering Major League Baseball, a baseball player said to me, they say that you're family. They say that, things aren't personal until you get to those contract negotiations. And then you realize this is a business. They see you as, everything is a business transaction. Yeah, you're going to get close with people, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a business. They got to make money. And look, I get that. I get, what Mozeliak is doing. I understand that he's running a big business, and that takes a lot of, there's a lot that goes into it that we don't even know behind the scenes, and that he kind of has to be the face of the good, the bad, all that kind of stuff. But I think the one thing that didn't help, the front office in this situation is just leaving so much room for questions. Look, okay, they could have just left it as, all right, things were not working out. We think that moving forward that we need to take things in a different direction. We appreciate what Schilt has done, but we are moving on into a different direction. They could have just said that. Instead, that whole press conference was almost the opposite of that. Philosophical differences, not really explain things. So then we are left with days, and like you said, with us media people just like speculating of like, well, this is like a very bizarre way to kind of send things off. You know what I mean? Is you're leaving so much to the imagination, where I feel like, especially nowadays, people appreciate when you're transparent. And especially if you're a fan, you're spending money, a lot of money going to these games. Don't you kind of want to at least understand their way of thinking of, okay, this is a good thing for us, instead of just leaving it as philosophical differences.
And that's my point. I don't want to sit here on the radio or social media and speculate. Okay, maybe the Jeff Albert thing is not as big of a deal as I think it is.
Yeah.
But guess what? When you don't tell people, then they are. And it's not just media, folks. It's every fan.
Oh, yeah.
It's every fan at the corner bar.
I mean, Twitter is just like, theories everywhere, dissecting everything, things that I haven't even thought of, like breaking down different things over the years that have happened with Schilt. But that's what happens when you just kind of leave more to be desired because you didn't really fully explain things. And look, I'm not expecting Mozeliak or DeWitt to go out there and be like, look, he didn't do this at this point, all that kind of stuff. And it's just at least explaining, okay, this wasn't working out as we planned. We feel like we need to take this team in a different direction. We are going to make sure we bring in somebody that we feel like is really going to fully align because of this reason. And I know that in some ways, maybe you're thinking, okay, they're doing that to protect Schilt. I don't think that they really helped Schilt look exactly great in that press conference, because it made it seem like he was very combative and wouldn't get on board. And if anything, like you brought up before, that could hurt him trying to get another job.
No doubt, especially, look, if you're, Cam, if you're anti-analytics, and I'm not saying that he is, but
we don't know. We have no idea.
That now is the theory.
Yes.
And so that is not going to help him get the next job with a bunch of organizations that are very heavy into that, Cam.
Yeah, well, even if you have a little bit of a disagreement on different things, everybody does. Again, we talked about this earlier, Brooke, with baseball managers now they're not like hockey coaches or anything. You got this like a sector of basically young kids that know analytics, and they have a say in every, decision you make, and it must be very, very tough. But I look at Schilt, like, if they said there was fundamental differences, is that
philosophical?
Philosophical,
whatever. Yeah, okay. Philosophical differences. If I'm Schilt, I'm like, no, you just fired me. I'm like, wait, I didn't disagree on that much stuff. What are we doing here? And then other people now are like, well, heck, we're all doing analytics. He doesn't like it. He's not an analytical guy. Well, we don't want him. What baseball team's going to look at Schiltz and be like, well, we want you because we're not going in that direction? So that kind of sucks for him if that's really not the case, if they didn't completely disagree on everything.
But here's another part of this, and this is why I've said it now a million times, but I promise you Mike Schilt did not want to be fired. If they would have said, look, man, here's your two options. We're either going to fire you or you come back and you do it our way, whether it's heavy analytics or Jeff Albert, whatever it is, I promise you Mike Schilt would still have taken the option where he's still the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. So this is now eye-opening, it has been, for Mike Schilt that, look, to the Cardinals, who, despite whatever you want to say about the Cardinals, they're very successful, and there's a lot of organizations like them. Mike Schilt has now realized that even though he's got how many years in the game? 20 years, 18 years in professional baseball with the Cardinals, done every single job. He's got a Manager of the Year award or trophy or plaque, whatever they give out for that, on his mantle, and he has 3 straight playoff appearances and still he got fired, that is eye-opening to him that moving forward, guess what? I don't have as much juice as I thought I did.
No. And here's another, real quick. And I think that,
you don't have to be quick.
Well, I'm just saying, with the Schild thing, I think he better have really put his foot down in meetings and said, no, I don't agree with this. Just staunch. I don't agree with this. Because if he didn't do that, and he's just like, well, what about this? And they were kind of going back and forth, because that's what you do in meetings, right? You have one say, they have, and then you kind of meet in the middle. That's kind of what you do whenever you have somewhat of disagreements. But if he wasn't no, I'm not doing that, and if they fired him and he was still kind of yeah, I'm game for learning new things or whatever, then that means there's a little bit more to it. And what does that mean? I don't know. You talk to some of the players. We always thought maybe the players didn't respect him, but no one's really saying anything. Now, what does that mean? Well, if they did respect him that much, don't you think some of the guys would have been like, damn, we liked him? I don't know. He was great. Wait, we were rooting for him.
That's 100% fair to bring that up. 100%. That's where you wonder. And again, when you don't get clear reasons, it makes you wonder, was he not as popular with the players? And by the way, just so people know, I don't know that to be true. But also, what if there were meetings with the staff and the front office, and people were saying, "Hey, we don't like this certain direction." You've heard different things, but again, when you don't have a clear reason, it does unfortunately. And this is not just the media; this is everybody. You just wonder if something else happened. That's natural to think that.
Big Al is driving me crazy. Jimmy Heuer.
Is he on the phone line?
Can he talk for just 10 seconds?
When you guys are done, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
My God.
Big Al, we're going to put you on just so you stop texting me. How are you, Big Al?
Hello?
Yes.
Are you there? Are you okay, sir?
Broke.
Excuse me? Broke?
Broke. Oh, I was
Broke.
He's been
I'm
listening.
proud of you. You and Katie Wu and all the girls, I'm proud of you because you're like us. You got to work hard to get there, but you do a great job. And here's the deal. Here's what got him fired. He said, I don't have the weapons, Schild. I play with what I get dealt with. Oh, okay. Ask Randy Rosarina how that worked out. So I got philosophical differences. They're making $30 million a year net. Mo runs out and acts like he's broke. Got to sign Carpenter ahead of the deal. All these guys. And you know what, Mo? You're on the clock, bro. They went away from Jeff Albert, and all of a sudden, voila, we're hitting. So I have differences, too. Luke Voigt, Alcantara, Rosarina, Wisdom. Shall I go on? You know?
No.
I mean, seriously.
Wisdom, it did take him 5 years with 3 organizations to finally hit 29 homers, whatever
Your
it was.
nickname's not Big Al anymore, by the way.
Okay, Miles Michaelis.
No, you're right. You know, you're bringing up, seriously, I'm kidding, but you're bringing up some good points. Randy Rosarina, the extension for Miles Michaelis when it wasn't needed, the extension for Matt Carpenter before you had to. Those are all, those are 100% fair points to bring up.
Right.
Thanks, Medium Al. That's your new nickname. You're not Big Al anymore because you're not big.
Broke. My nickname is Big Al, so let's just go there. So anyway, I'm proud of you, kid. I'm serious. You do a great job. You, Katie, all the girls, and you're a lot better than these idiots because they had a hot mic at the break, and I heard everything.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we didn't say anything.
What? I didn't say it. I went to the bathroom. Did you hear that?
Big Al's texting me your mic is hot. We were just having normal break conversation as if we were going to get fired for saying, hey, Brooke, how was your weekend?
Thanks, Medium Al. That's Big
Anything
Al.
else? He's still on. All right, Big Al. There we go.
Thank you, Big Al.
Great call.
Nice meeting you.
That was sweet, though. That was sweet. He's a sweet guy.
You know what I wonder, though? And again, when people say, Mo, you're on the clock, I understand fans and media saying that. I don't think he is, though. No. Because his boss is Bill DeWitt, and I think Bill DeWitt, first of all, loves him almost like a son, but also, despite whatever you want to say, he still makes a lot of money for Bill DeWitt. He's never had a losing season. They are in the playoffs about, 2/3 of the time under his tenure. That doesn't mean the Cardinals can't and shouldn't be better. They shouldn't have a higher standard getting back to 2011 to 2015. The standard should be LCSs and World Series. It shouldn't be wild cards and just making the playoffs and being good enough to get in the final week, final day, and let's see what happens. All right, both those things can be true. That John Mozeliak has been very successful, but yet still the last 5-6 years, the Cardinals want and need more in terms of deeper postseason runs.
Well, yeah, I think the fans are kind of expecting it, too, because, even though it wasn't that long ago, it's still been 10 years since you last won. And so now it does feel like the clock is kind of ticking because you don't want to get away from that. You know how they always bring it up, especially, the Blues bring it up now, too, that winning mentality. You don't want to get away from that, what it took to get to that point. And so it's been 10 years removed from when they last won. And, maybe like I said, there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't even know. And I think that front offices now are bigger than they used to be. A lot more stuff is analytical driven, and you're seeing that with Mozeliak and Gersh and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm sure that they know that it's going to take some time. And I think that DeWitt are buying into that, is that it's going to take some time for it to get to this point where it really turns into this new way of baseball where it works out for them again.
And I mentioned this earlier, so if you weren't listening, but I'm looking right now at the Cardinals website, Baseball Operations Department. There's about 30. These are jobs. These are people. These are salaries. Again, when you talk about making money, let's remember where the investment is from the DeWitts, from Bill DeWitt, who cuts the checks. There are about 30 positions in baseball ops with jobs like analytics engineer, senior data scientist, right? And we joke about the nerds, quote unquote, but Bill DeWitt has made an investment in all of these folks in that front office. Okay, and that means something because they're putting money there and they want those folks to be heard, which is why you can understand, even if you disagree, that there needs to be more of a meshing between the data in the front office with the manager on the field, and why most of these teams, whether you like it or not, the Tony La Russes of the world and the Joe Torres and the Dusty Bakers, there's not many of those guys left. And in the future, I don't think there's going to be a lot of those guys because they'll get fired before they get the juice to have the 3 World Series championships, like a Bruce Bochy, right? I mean, Bill DeWitt has invested in this department. I think he wants to see it through. That's clear by the move that John Mozeliak made, where, look, it's John Mozeliak, it's the folks in the baseball ops department, and these people are more important, and a manager is more replaceable. This is true.
Yeah, I mean, that is the future of baseball that we are looking at right now, whether people agree with it or not. And I could see, and this is just my own personal take on this, I think Schilt, obviously, he's always been brought up as a great baseball mind, and just talking to him, you guys know that. But I think that he is also more of a people person, so I could see why sometimes that could probably be an issue, or the philosophical differences, as they say, because you have some people who are bringing up solely stats and not looking at the person. And I could see Schilt saying, okay, aside from that, this is what I feel about the person and what they should be doing, where they should be. I think that, Alex Reyes should be out there for that wild card game. You know what I mean? I could see how that could be, something that came to a head, as, Mozeliak said.
All right. Text line 855-282-8255. Kyle says, not just the investment into the salaries of those people, but also the investment into the technology that comes along with what the, quote, nerds are getting paid to do, specifically including the technology that is at the minor league level and the hitting and pitching lab in Jupiter, which we've seen being constructed there, and all the cameras that go on that Jeff Albert's setting up for batting practice, all of that. That's a good point. Scott's Wrinkled says, Brooke, on behalf of all 590 listeners, I would like to offer a community apology for having to endure that Big Al call. Thank you always for your great coverage.
Tires up,
too.
He was a good boy.
And here,
look,
he was nice.
Big Al. He was a sweetheart.
Listen,
and he's a good guy.
And I read ones that are negative towards me. Does Charlie want to work for the FM Sports? I'm going to say talk station. They have plenty of chapstick. LOL. You're not that bad, but getting there today. By the way, they're not rights holders for the Cardinals. All I'm trying to say is
today, Charlie, why are they on you?
If you think I'm overly pro Cardinals, which again I said in this situation, there's no villain here. This is big time sports. They'll both be fine. They're all making millions of dollars. Mike Schilt will be just fine. He'll get another gig. I think sometimes, though, I understand if you don't like John Mozeliak. I get it. But he's never had a losing season. He has a boss who enjoys the fact the Cardinals have never had a losing season. You can't forget that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's a business at the end of the day. The DeWitts see that their investment is paying off because they're making it to the playoffs. So from a business standpoint, yeah, I can see why they aren't exactly upset with the front office.
And that's where I'm basing that on, look, Big Al said, Mo, you're on the clock. I get fans saying that. I understand media saying that. I don't think that's true.
No.
In the sense of, do you really think Bill DeWitt's like, hey, John Mozeliak, if we don't get to the LCS next year, you're fired? I don't think
Big Al said you're on the clock. You better.
That's my point. Is he's not on the clock because I think his boss likes the way he's doing his job. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, and I think that, there were some times just kind of learning the Cardinals organization where I did think that, where it's like, okay, maybe we won't see Mozeliak for much longer, but especially with the way that this just went down, it was very clear to me from here on out that this is something that the Cardinals the DeWitts have invested in, and they're going to see this through.
100%. Brooke, that was a great point. This decision, by the way, is like the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Or it could be 5 years. But the point is, Mike Shildt had 1 year left on his deal. Okay, so the Cardinals are looking forward. You look short-term and long-term. But this was, how does our organization look, let's just say the next 3 years? And this was, we're going away from Shildt. We're sticking with our data. We're sticking with our baseball ops. We're sticking with Jeff Albert. And we think we can find Shildt in an Ollie Marmol or a Stubby Clapp or Skip Schumacher, whoever it is, and there won't be a drop-off. This was the investment. So again, I don't think it's like, oh, the Cardinals don't make the playoffs next year, John Mozeliak is fired. No, this is how we want our baseball ops department to run for the next 3 years or so, and then we'll reevaluate if it's not working.
Yeah. Random question, and I just thought about that this weekend, is I have only talked to Jeff Albert once since I've been here. Have you talked to him any? I mean, I know that we don't really talk to, assistant coaches and stuff like that, but sometimes you do, especially if it makes sense and stuff like that. But I just realized that the only time I've heard from Jeff Albert is when that Houston Astros scandal came out and his possible involvement in it, and they made him available, remember, in Jupiter during spring training, and he said that he didn't have any knowledge of it. That was the only time I've ever talked to him.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong timeline-wise, but his first year with the Cardinals was 2019. So I interviewed him at spring training before the 2019 season. Was it that same spring training that the story broke? Because I remember I
think so.
Almost everybody did a sit down with Jeff Albert when he first got the job with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
But then it was either that spring training or another one. And again, I'm sorry, I don't have a good memory.
Where they did
then
the media
he had to do the media scrum reacting to the Houston Astros scandal.
Yeah, I think that was the 2019 one. Because he also had short hair then, too. And now he has long hair. So I just remember that specifically when it comes to timelines. And I wasn't here for that 2018 spring training. So I was just thinking, I haven't even talked to, this person that we hear so much about that has, I see him set up the cameras. And as you mentioned, I see him set up the cameras. I see him working with Paul Goldschmidt. It seems like they have a great relationship together. So we know that he is heavily involved in all this, and so, but I just realized I've never really heard his perspective or really what it is that he's doing, the certain technology that he's bringing in and how it really does advance and help this team.
And that's another part of this, is we've all brought up the stats. The Cardinals, for the last 3 years, and we really talked about this midway through this season, they were the lower third of the National League. So they were, 11th, 12th, 13th in most of these important categories, if you're talking about OPS and things of that nature. And that was also the case for the 3 years he was here. At the big league level, another part of this, and I understand if you disagree, but the Cardinals, they may love what's going on with, let's say, Jordan Walker, with Nolan Gorman, with Juan Yepez, with how the minor leaguers are coming up with this new technology and what Jeff Albert is implementing, and they think that's going to pay off down the road. And also the fact, it's been much talked about, that the Cardinals are in a very pitcher-friendly park. And that could be more of a reason than just the hitting coach of why the Cardinals' numbers overall are not where a lot of people think they should be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point. It's interesting to see, just this change in baseball in general, where the front offices now have more of a say in things, as opposed to, like you said, the Tony La Russa personalities. You get the image of him like really saying, this is what I need, get this for me, this is what we need to be successful. We're past those days in Major League Baseball. And it's just interesting that we're seeing this change happen right in front of us here in St. Louis.